great things about living in Los Cabos, which is where I live full time, is that gas stations here are full service. I bet you didn't know that. I think it's kind of that way throughout Mexico. You pull up in your car and a friendly gas attendant comes to your window and says, "What can I do for you?" And they pump your gas and they wash your windows and they'll check your fluids and check air in your tire, which is really kind of cool. As a matter of fact, when I go back to the United States and visit there, a couple of times I've been like sitting in my car waiting for somebody to come help me pump my gas, which doesn't happen in the United States. So while I really like that connection and that special feeling of having somebody pump gas for you, and it's a lot of fun, there's a downside to that. And as an expat living in Los Cabos, I want to share with you not only the good and amazing things about living here, but I want to share kind of the underbelly too, so that you will know what to expect and you will know how to protect yourself at the gas pump. That's right. I said you will know how to protect yourself at the gas pump. That is because there are some attendants who pump your gas for you who try to get a little money from you. And they try to scam you a little bit. This happens commonly, and I believe it happens throughout Mexico. I'm mostly familiar with Los Cabos, but I know that the stories are pretty consistent with people I've heard from other parts of Mexico as well. So let's delve in and talk about some of the ways that you can be scammed at the gas pump and maybe some ways to protect yourself from this happening. My name is Kenda, and I am an expat. I've been living in Los Cabos, Mexico for 3.5 years full time. And before that, my husband and I came back and forth for about 4 years from Atlanta to Cabo. And we loved it so much that we decided to sell everything we owned in Atlanta and move to Cabo. And we really have never looked back. But I do have to share with you not just the great things about Cabo, but I also want to be fair and share with you some of the not so great things. So let's jump right in and talk about what's going on at the gas pump. So, yes, scamming at the gas pump is kind of a thing. So the first thing that we hear a lot here is that, and this has kind of been done away with, but it used to be a really big problem, that you would pull up and you would roll down your window and you would tell the attendant that you wanted to fill up your gas tank. And the pump register, the pump numbers would maybe not say 0. So maybe they would say 200 or 100. And then you would get gas and your total would be 700 pesos. But really, because the pump started at 200, you really only got 500 pesos worth of gas, but you're paying 700 pesos. So that's a common thing that we saw quite a bit a few years ago. One thing that social media has done is it has helped all of the expats know to make sure that gas gauge says 0. So what I've started seeing recently is that a lot of even the gas attendants that will be pumping your gas for you will look at you and they'll point to the gas gauge and they'll say cero, cero. And it's them letting you know that they know that you know that pump needs to say 0. So that's kind of great. They're on to that. They know we're on to them, and they do make sure the pump is zeroed out. But on the opposite side, the same thing can happen. You can you could say, I want, fill it up, and you're watching the gas gauge and it's 500, 550, 600. And then you look down to get your money done together. And then you look back up and it's 750. And you thought that it was done, but now it's 750. So you pay 750 when really it stopped at 600. So you paid an extra 150 pesos. So the best way to combat this little scam is always get out of your car when the gas attendant comes to pump your gas. So I know it feels a little uncomfortable. Personally, I don't even like to get gas anymore. I kind of send my husband to get gas in my car because I hate that feeling of making people feel like I assume that they're trying to rip me off. I hate that feeling. And most gas attendants here are honest and they're not trying to rip you off. But there are a few who are trying to rip you off. And I think even the honest gas attendants know about the dishonest gas attendants. And so it doesn't seem like they really get their feelings that hurt. But it makes me feel uncomfortable. But regardless, to protect yourself, the best thing for you to do is when you turn off your car, get out of the car and stand there and look at the gas pump, point to it and say to the gas attendant, zero, which means zero, and make sure that it is indeed zero. And then when it's done and he takes the gas out, you point to it and you look at it and you make a note of how much it was so that they don't push any buttons or do any nefarious little magic tricks to make it jump up 100 pesos. So that's a really good way to make sure that you start off right and that they know that you're watching. So another thing that people can do is they can skim your credit card. So if you pay with a credit card, make sure that your attendant doesn't have their phone out or any other little devices around your credit card. Make sure that if they walk away to go pay at a terminal or something, that you go with them, and make sure that your credit card is taken care of and that you're watching it the whole time. Now, there is a really interesting thing that they've started to do, because I think they know most gringos want to be friendly. And what should set warning bells off in your mind is if another gas attendant comes over and starts chatting you up and asking you, hey, how's your Spanish? Can you count to 10? That happened to my husband and I one time. He's like, how high can you count in Spanish? Uno, dos, tres. And he was trying to get my husband to count in Spanish. And he was pretty insistent, like, oh, come on, you can do better, you can do better. And when we drove away, I was sitting in the car and my husband had gotten out like you're supposed to. And he pointed to the gauge and said zero, just like you're supposed to do. We did everything right. But this guy was really being friendly and asking us, if we liked Mexico, and he was very engaging. And we drove away and we realized that we had just gotten ripped off because the amounts weren't right. And then we realized that other attendant was distracting us so that this guy could do something. So huge red flag. If another attendant comes over and starts trying to chat you up and ask you questions about your time in Mexico, you kind of just have to say, un momento, por favor, just please 1 moment, and turn your back and make sure you stay zoned in on your attendant and on that gas pump at all times, and on the gauge, gas gauge at all times. So just a quick break. I'm Kenda. I like to do videos about life in Los Cabos. I live in San Jose del Cabo and I love it here. I'm a real estate agent here and I love helping other people find their dream homes. So if you have any questions about life in Cabo, please feel free to let me know. And I would be so happy if you would like my videos, thumbs up, and subscribe, because that way when I put new videos out, you'll get notified that I've added a new video. So thank you for that. So moving on to a couple of other more common scams. This one I see a lot and it's really tricky and it's kind of magical when it happens, and not in a good way. But say your bill comes to 900 pesos, which, as much money as gas is costing these days, I guess that's not outrageously unreasonable. So say you give your attendant 900 pesos and your attendant will oh, sir, you gave me 700, it's 900, but you gave me 700. You're like, no, I gave you 900. No, look, you gave me, here, look, you gave me 700. And there's no way for you to prove that you gave them 900 because they're really quick. And I don't know what they do with the money, but it disappears. That happens a lot here. And I've had several friends that that's happened to. Another one is they say, give them a 500 and they'll say, oh, you gave me a 50 because it's the same color. So they're like, oh, you gave me a 50. So that's another one that happens. And wow, you have to be careful. So what I do to combat that is when I give them the money, you can see here on the money, it says 500. And this one here says 200. And this is 100 pesos. So 500 is 500. So what I will do is I'll say 500, and then I'll hand them 200, 100 pesos, 100 pesos. And so I count off the money bill by bill, and I say out loud how much it is and how much the actual denomination of the bill that I'm giving them is, so that it's very clear. I'm not handing them a wad of money where they can quickly make one bill disappear, okay? So that's what I suggest for that. And then the last one that I've seen a lot is you give them your credit card and you tell them to charge it. They charge your credit card and they say, oh, your credit card was declined. I don't know, maybe because you didn't tell your company that you're in Mexico, but it was declined. And so it was 500 pesos. So you give them 500 pesos and you go on about your way and you go home, and then you realize 3 weeks later that, oh, indeed, it was not declined. And so that 500 pesos that you gave the attendant went right in his pocket and your credit card bill was charged. And at that point, what are you going to do? Obviously, you can go back and complain, but what are you going to do? You have no proof of that. So especially if you're a tourist and you go back to the United States or Canada, you're not going to fly back down here over 500 pesos. So that's a very common one. So please pay attention to that and be aware of that. Make sure you count out the denomination and tell them the denomination of the money that you're giving them. I like to tip my gas station attendants if they don't rip me off. So it's very common here to give them a little tip. Maybe I'll give them 150 pesos or 200 pesos, which is $1, because I do appreciate the people who are honest, and I like to reward them for that. So if you think you got ripped off, what do you do? Well, you can ask to speak to the manager. You can be very firm and just say that is not what happened. Bring me your manager, or call the police. Ask the police to come here so I can talk to them. Usually they're going to back down if they try to scam you. And then there's another organization called Profeco, which is the Consumer Protection Organization for Cabo and for Mexico. And you can say, I'm going to report you to Profeco and get their name. I've seen people take a picture of the attendant and say, I'm putting your picture on social media and telling people to be aware of you. I've seen people do that too. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. If it has, I would be so grateful if you would give me a thumbs up and if you would subscribe to my channel at Home in Cabo. And I will try to put up more information for you as the time goes by. If you have any questions or any information that you would like for me to talk about on my channel, please let me know in the comments and I will happily shoot a video for you. So have a great day and come visit us in Cabo soon.